The American dream. It used to mean something, didn't it? A good job, a house, maybe a couple of kids running around with grass stains on their knees. But somewhere along the way, that dream started to feel more like a fever dream. Because let's be honest, folks, the systematic dismantling of the American way of life is happening right before our very eyes. Here are 20 signs that American families are being economically eviscerated. Remember when owning a home was considered a cornerstone of the American dream? Well, these days it's starting to feel more like a pipe dream. Housing costs have skyrocketed, gobbling up a bigger chunk of our paychecks. We're talking mortgage payments that rival the GDP of a small island nation. And don't even get me started on property taxes. In many cities, you're lucky if you can find a cardboard box for that price. Families are forced to shell out half or even two-thirds of their income. It's a recipe for disaster, and frankly, it's unsustainable. So you're thinking, forget owning, I'll just rent. Renting has become its own special circle of financial hell. Landlords are jacking up rents, and tenants are left scrambling. Finding a semi-decent apartment feels like winning the lottery. Renting is no longer an alternative to homeownership, it's a trap that keeps them stuck in a cycle of debt. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? The minimum wage, that benchmark of economic prosperity that's supposed to ensure the bare necessities of life. Except there's one tiny problem, it doesn't. Not even close. Millions survive on starvation wages. They rely on government assistance. It's a national disgrace. Imagine this. You work full-time, maybe even two jobs. You clip coupons like it's an Olympic sport. And yet you're still one unexpected expense away from financial ruin. This is the reality for millions of American families. For these families, every penny counts. The good old days when school lunch was something you either scarfed down with gusto or traded for a bag of chips. These days, school lunch has become a luxury many families can't afford. The price of school lunches has been steadily creeping up, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. And what happens when kids can't afford lunch? They go hungry. When you could stroll through the grocery store without feeling like you needed a small loan, those days are gone. The cost of food has skyrocketed, turning a mundane chore into a financial tightrope walk. Whether it's the price of meat or the cost of produce, grocery shopping has become an exercise in frustration. And don't even get me started on the price of eggs. This is about basic staples becoming out of reach for millions. Families are struggling to put nutritious meals on the table. Ah, children, those adorable little bundles of joy that bring so much laughter, love, and financial ruin. Okay, maybe not ruin, but let's just say that raising kids these days is about as expensive as hiring a team of trained professionals to follow you around and throw money into a bonfire. Childcare costs have reached stratospheric levels, leaving many parents with a difficult choice: work to afford childcare or stay home and, well, not work. It's a classic catch-22, and it's putting immense strain on families across the country. It's a necessity, not a luxury, and yet it's become increasingly out of reach for far too many families. Let's play a fun game called Spot the Inequality. In this corner, we have the top 1%, obscenely wealthy individuals, and in the other corner we have, well, everyone else. The gap between the rich and the poor has widened faster than a teenager's eyes when they see a plate of nachos. While the 1% are off gallivanting on their mega yachts, the rest of us are struggling to keep up with the rising cost of living and stagnant wages. When the fight for a $15 minimum wage felt revolutionary, the revolution hasn't arrived for everyone. Millions still toil for wages that would make a medieval peasant scoff. The fight for a living wage is far from over. The cost of living rises while wages remain stagnant. Anything less is simply unacceptable. The American middle class, once the engine of prosperity, is shrinking faster than a polar bear's habitat. Squeezed by the 1%'s wealth and stagnant wages, these are real people working harder but falling behind. They're the backbone of our economy, crushed by a failing system. A strong middle class is essential for a healthy economy. Remember retirement? That mythical land of leisure and endless rounds of golf? For many, it's a distant dream. Financial insecurity is growing, net worth is declining, and savings are hit hard. Rising costs and unexpected burdens eat away at nest eggs. Can they ever afford to retire? Staying in the workforce longer stifles job growth and innovation. It's time to take retirement security seriously. Imagine this. Your car breaks down, your child gets sick, your roof springs a leak. Now imagine facing those situations without any savings to fall back on. This is the reality for millions of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, one unexpected expense away from financial disaster. The lack of emergency savings is a growing crisis in America, and it's a testament to the precarious financial situation of so many families. When you're struggling to make ends meet, saving for a rainy day can feel like an impossible luxury, but the consequences of not having a financial cushion can be devastating. Work, 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 work. It's the mantra of the modern American, the endless grind that's supposed to lead to financial security, a comfortable life, and the elusive American dream. But for millions of Americans, work simply isn't enough. They're caught in the paycheck-to-paycheck trap, working tirelessly just to keep their heads above water. These are the hardworking Americans who are showing up every day, putting in their hours, but still struggling to make ends meet. The paycheck-to-paycheck grind is exhausting, demoralizing, and ultimately unsustainable. It's time we created an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. Education, the great equalizer, the key to a brighter future, but for millions it comes at a steep price: student loan debt. A generation saddled with debt, their dreams deferred, their futures mortgaged before they've even started. We need to make education affordable again. In America, getting sick can be more expensive than a weekend getaway with Elon Musk. A labyrinth of bills, co-pays, and deductibles can bankrupt even the most financially stable families. Medical debt is a uniquely American problem, turning a health crisis into a financial nightmare. We need a healthcare system that puts people before profits, providing affordable care to all Americans. The homeownership dream fading fast. Owning a home, once a cornerstone of the American dream, is slipping further out of reach for many Americans. The combination of rising home prices, stagnant wages, and stricter lending standards has created a perfect storm that's making it increasingly difficult for families to achieve the dream of homeownership. The decline in homeownership rates has far-reaching consequences. It can lead to decreased wealth accumulation, increased housing instability, and a widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. We need to make homeownership more accessible and affordable for all Americans. When businesses close, communities crumble. Small businesses are the lifeblood of any community. They give neighborhoods character and charm. But we've seen a wave of closures, leaving behind empty storefronts and economic despair. Rising costs, stagnant wages, and corporate competition are to blame. When businesses close, communities suffer. We need to support our small businesses and invest in our communities. Food insecurity, the hidden epidemic. In the wealthiest nation on earth, it's a national shame that millions of Americans struggle with food insecurity, unsure of where their next meal will come from. This isn't a problem of scarcity, it's a problem of inequality, a stark reminder that our economic system is failing far too many people. Food insecurity has devastating consequences, particularly for children. It can lead to developmental delays, health problems, and poor educational outcomes. It's a moral crisis that demands our attention. We need to strengthen the social safety net, expand access to affordable and nutritious food, and address the root causes of poverty and inequality. The wealth gap, a chasm of epic proportions. The gap between the rich and the poor in America has reached staggering levels, a chasm of epic proportions that threatens to swallow up the American dream for millions. The top 1% controls a disproportionate share of the nation's wealth, while the bottom 50% struggles to make ends meet. This level of inequality is not only morally wrong, it's economically unsustainable. It stifles economic growth, fuels social unrest, and undermines the very fabric of our society. We need to enact policies that promote economic fairness, such as progressive taxation, a living wage, and affordable health care. Taxed to the limit, the high cost of living in America. It's April 15th, and you know what that means. Time to send a hefty chunk of your hard-earned money to Uncle Sam. Taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society, but for many Americans, the tax burden feels overwhelming. From income taxes to property taxes to sales taxes, it seems like every time we turn around, there's another hand in our pocket. And while we all benefit from public services, the question remains, are we getting our money's worth? The future is now time to act. So, there you have it, folks. It's a sobering picture, but not hopeless. We can still turn things around with collective effort. The time for action is now.